Asterisk, those words hit Dorothy Mae Peterson like a sledgehammer to her chest. At 73 years old, she had weathered many storms in her life. But nothing quite prepared her for the casual cruelty in her daughter-in-law Patricia's voice, as she delivered this devastating news over Eggs Benedict and Mimos. Asterisk, Dorothy sat in the upscale restaurant, her weathered hands trembling slightly as she reached for her coffee cup. The bustling sounds of the Sunday brunch crowd seemed to fade into a distant hum, as Patricia continued talking about their vacation plans and how they wanted a small, intimate Christmas this year. Translation: Dorothy wasn't welcome. Asterisk, her son, Robert, sat beside his wife, avoiding his mother's eyes, occasionally nodding in agreement with Patricia's explanations. Dorothy watched the man she had raised, the boy she had sacrificed everything for, and felt her heart breaking in real time. Asterisk, I understand, Dorothy finally managed to say, her voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. She had learned long ago that showing weakness only gave people more ammunition to use against you. Asterisk, the drive home to her small apartment felt eternal. Dorothy gripped the steering wheel of her old Honda Civic, the same car she'd been driving for 15 years because she couldn't afford anything newer on her fixed income. The radio played Christmas carols, each note feeling like salt in a fresh wound. Asterisk, as she climbed the 2 flights of stairs to her apartment. Dorothy's arthritic knees protested, but she pushed through the pain. Physical discomfort was nothing compared to the ache in her heart. She fumbled with her keys, hands still shaking, and finally made it inside her small but tidy home. Asterisk. The apartment was quiet except for the ticking of the mantel clock that had belonged to her mother. Dorothy collapsed into her favorite armchair, the blue recliner that Robert had bought her for Mother's Day 5 years ago, back when he still seemed to care and let the tears come. Asterisk, but Dorothy Mae Peterson hadn't survived the Great Depression. As a child, hadn't raised 3 children as a single mother after her husband left, hadn't worked 2 jobs while putting herself through nursing school in her 40s, just to crumble now. After allowing herself exactly 10 minutes of tears, she wiped her eyes and began to think. Asterisk, if you're finding strength in Dorothy's story so far, please take a moment to follow our channel. Your support means everything to storytellers like us. The next morning, Dorothy woke with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. She made her morning coffee, the same ritual she'd maintained for 5 decades, and sat down with a notepad and pen. At the top of the page, she wrote, "Things I've always wanted to do." Asterisk, the list started small. Learn to paint, visit the library more often, join that book club Margaret from downstairs kept mentioning. But as her pen moved across the paper, the dreams grew bigger. Travel to Ireland, where her grandmother had been born. Take dancing lessons. Learn to use a computer properly. Volunteer at the Children's Hospital. Asterisk, for too many years, Dorothy had defined herself through others as Robert's mother, Patricia's mother-in-law, as the grandmother who babysat whenever needed. She had made herself small and convenient, always available, never demanding too much attention or space. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to reclaim Dorothy. Asterisk, the first step was practical. Dorothy had been living in this apartment for 12 years. Ever since Robert convinced her to sell the family home because it was too much house for one person. The truth was, he wanted his inheritance early to buy his own dream house. Dorothy had agreed because she always put her children's needs before her own. Asterisk. But the sale of that house had left her with a tidy sum in savings that she'd barely touched. Living modestly on her Social Security and small pension from the hospital where she'd worked for 25 years. It was time to put that money to work for her own dreams. Asterisk, within a week, Dorothy had signed up for oil painting classes at the community center, joined the book club, and in a moment of particular boldness, booked a 2-week tour of Ireland for the following spring. The travel agent, a kind young woman named Susan, helped her navigate the online booking system and even showed her how to use email to stay in touch with the tour company. Asterisk, you know? Mrs. Peterson, Susan said as they finished the paperwork. "You have such an adventurous spirit. You ever thought about starting a blog or something to share your experiences? I bet lots of people would love to hear your stories." Asterisk, Dorothy laughed. "Oh, honey, I can barely figure out email. I don't think I'm cut out for all that computer business." Asterisk, but Susan's words planted a seed. That evening, Dorothy called her neighbor Margaret, who had been trying to get her to join various activities for months. Asterisk, Margaret, do you still go to that computer class at the senior center? Asterisk, every Tuesday and Thursday. Dorothy Mae Peterson, are you finally ready to join the 21st century? Asterisk, I suppose I am. Asterisk, the computer classes were humbling at first. Dorothy, who had managed complex medication schedules and hospital protocols for decades, found herself frustrated by something as simple as opening an email. But the instructor, a patient college student named Timothy, reminded her that learning something new at any age was an act of courage. Asterisk, Mrs. Peterson, you're doing great. Timothy encouraged her one afternoon when she was struggling with creating a Facebook account. Remember, you're not behind, you're just getting started at your own pace. Asterisk, asterisk, don't forget to stay connected with our community by hitting that subscribe button. We love sharing inspiring stories like Dorothy's with viewers who appreciate real-life courage. Asterisk, asterisk, by December, Dorothy had not only mastered basic computer skills but had indeed started a blog called Starting Over at 73. Her first post was simple but honest. Asterisk, asterisk, my name is Dorothy. And this Christmas, my family decided they didn't want me around. Instead of feeling sorry for myself, I decided to find out who I am when I'm not trying to be who everyone else needs. Me too. This is my journey. Asterisk, asterisk, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Comments poured in from people around the world, other seniors who felt forgotten, middle-aged children struggling with aging parents, young people inspired by her courage. Dorothy found herself spending hours responding to messages, sharing advice, and building connections with strangers who felt like friends. Asterisk, her painting classes had yielded surprising results too. Dorothy discovered she had a natural eye for color and composition. Her instructor, a former art teacher named Helen, encouraged her to enter a piece in the local art show. Asterisk, I couldn't possibly. Dorothy protested, looking at her painting of the sunrise over the lake near her childhood home. I just started painting 3 months ago. Asterisk, Dorothy, this isn't about how long you've been painting. It's about what you have to say. And this painting says something beautiful about hope and new beginnings. Helen was right. Dorothy's painting, titled Dawn at 73, won second place in the amateur division and sold to a young couple who said it reminded them of the importance of never giving up on dreams. Asterisk. Christmas morning arrived gray and cold. Dorothy woke in her apartment alone, but she didn't feel lonely. She had plans. Margaret was coming over for breakfast, followed by a visit to the children's hospital, where Dorothy had started volunteering. Reading stories to sick kids who couldn't go home for the holidays. Asterisk. But first, she checked her blog comments, a ritual that had become as important as her morning coffee. Among the usual supportive messages was one that made her pause. Asterisk, asterisk, Mom, I read your blog. Patricia showed it to me. I didn't know ... I didn't realize ... Can we talk? Robert, asterisk, asterisk. Dorothy stared at the screen for a long moment. 3 months ago, she would have immediately called him, would have been so grateful for any attention from her son that she would have forgiven everything instantly. But 3 months of learning to value herself had changed her perspective. She typed back, Robert, I love you, but I'm not the same person who sat quietly at that brunch. If you want to be part of my life, you need to understand that I have boundaries now, and I have my own life to live. We can talk, but it will be as equals, or not at all. Asterisk, asterisk. The phone rang 20 minutes later. Asterisk, Mom. Robert's voice was thick, with emotion. I've been such an idiot, Patricia and I. We got so caught up in our own lives, our own plans. We forgot that you're not just my mother. You're a person with your own dreams and feelings. Yes, I am, Dorothy said simply. Can I come over? Can we spend Christmas together? I want to hear about Ireland and your painting and this blog that has thousands of followers, apparently. Dorothy smiled, looking around her small apartment that no longer felt like a place she'd settled for, but like a home she'd chosen. You can come over, Robert, but bring Margaret's coffee cake recipe. I'm making brunch for Margaret and some of the other ladies from book club. If you want to join us, you're welcome. But you'll have to share me. I'd like that. Mom, I'd like that very much. As Dorothy hung up the phone, she realized that the Christmas rejection that had felt so devastating 3 months ago had actually been a gift. It had forced her to discover that she didn't need anyone else's approval to live a full, rich life. She had learned that starting over wasn't about age. It was about courage. Her computer dinged with a new blog comment. Dorothy, I'm 45 and going through a divorce. Your story is giving me hope that it's not too late to find out who I am. Thank you for showing us what strength looks like. Dorothy smiled as she typed her response. Dear friend, it's never too late to bloom. I'm 73 and just getting started. You're going to be amazed at what you're capable of. If Dorothy's transformation has touched your heart. We'd be honored if you'd join our community by subscribing to our channel together. We're proving that every chapter of life can be the beginning of something beautiful. Later that morning, as Robert helped her set the table for 6 instead of 1, Dorothy caught her reflection in the kitchen window. The woman looking back at her was still 73, still had silver hair and laugh lines around her eyes. But there was something different, a light, a confidence, sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. You know what, Robert? She said, straightening the tablecloth. That brunch where Patricia uninvited me from Christmas? It was the best thing that ever happened to me. How can you say that, Mom? We hurt you. Dorothy patted her son's hand. Yes, you did. But that hurt forced me to realize I had been living as a shadow of myself, always waiting for other people to define my worth. Now I know better. I am Dorothy Mae Peterson, artist, blogger, traveler, volunteer, and friend to many. Being your mother is just one part of who I am, not the whole story. The doorbell rang, and Margaret's cheerful voice called out, Dorothy! I brought the coffee cake and 3 new friends who were dying to meet the famous blogger. As Dorothy opened the door to welcome her guests, she marveled at how full her life had become in just 3 short months. The apartment that had once echoed with loneliness now buzzed with laughter and conversation. Her calendar, once empty except for doctor's appointments and grocery shopping, is now packed with painting classes, computer lessons, volunteer work, and social activities. Most importantly, she had discovered that happiness wasn't something that happened to her. It was something she created, one brave choice at a time. The Ireland trip was still 4 months away. But Dorothy had already started planning her next adventure after that. Maybe Italy to study Renaissance art, or perhaps a cooking class in France. The world felt wide open with possibilities, and for the first time in decades, Dorothy felt worthy of all of them. As she served coffee cake to her guests and listened to Margaret tell the story of how she'd convinced Dorothy to take computer classes. Dorothy thought about all the women her age who might be sitting alone today, believing their best years were behind them. Tomorrow, she decided she would write a blog post about that. She would tell them what she had learned, that rejection could be redirection, that loneliness could be the beginning of self-discovery, and that 73 was not too late to fall in love with your own life. The Christmas that was supposed to break her had actually set her free. And Dorothy Mae Peterson was just getting started. Asterisk.